He would follow the event from his home just as it was about to begin. Officials say that he wants to preserve his health. And those are your headlines. He's been very sick lately.
Is that concerning?
Don't make her answer that.
Yeah.
All right, let's check in with meteorologist Adam Kloth for.
There's an alarm bell ringing right now. Common decency is in resuscitation.
This is nothing new. They've just been caught at the lie that they care about the average individual. This was it was obscene. It was disgusting. It was certainly a lack of empathy. And it's almost as though empathy has been excised from them in some kind of a surgery. And they're all there, laughing it up, having a great time with their big celebrity pals, making lots of money.
One moment, let me play you a clip of something. Somebody running up and down, waving their flag, believing every single conspiracy theory that somebody may have shared on X, Twitter, whatever it's called. That person is hoping that you get clicks so they can make money out of the advertising, by the way. One of those people running up and down, let's say tomorrow, unfortunately, they find themselves in a medical situation, even in the hospital. I don't think Charlie Kirk's suddenly going to turn up and be by the side of their bed. I don't think Jesse Waters or Judge Jeanine Pirro on Fox is going to turn up and hold their hand. I don't think Trump's going to be on WhatsApp full-time asking about, how are you? I do not understand how people, and it's not this is not ideology. This is not like, oh, give more money to the state or more tax cuts. This is about common decency. What happened? You go around the world, Americans are known for their hospitality, their fun, their strength, their sense of unity. Some of these voices you see running up and down, like Don Trump Jr. and former guy, appear to have just gone down the hole of the worst. Just scum is what's going on. It can't be the situation where if I was to get a hose pipe and spray stinking, shitty manure over everywhere.
We've always seen honesty with President Trump. One thing about that guy is that you know who he is. He is always going to be himself. He never adjusts the nature of what he's going to say or do to trick people or to pander.
I mean, you were 16 years old at the time. I should remind everyone. What's it like to see him doing what he's doing now, 35 years later?
You know, when I think about a person like Donald Trump who is using his power to influence judgment, you know, I follow a faith as a Muslim that tells us that we shouldn't use our power to influence judgment. And here it is, 35 years ago for me, 1989, what he did by placing that ad in New York City's newspapers had a domino effect where people, the way I describe it really is that it was a whisper into the darkest enclaves of society for them to do to us what they had done to Emmett Till. We have a long history of oppression in this country when it comes to black people in general. And when I think about a person like Donald Trump who's in power, who's trying to use his influence to affect the outcome of elections, to be a person who says, look at this shiny apple and that be a sneaker, or any of the other things, you know, that whisper, that influence that causes people to say, well, I'll take care of it, and hope. And I'm saying the people that do this hope that they will garner the favor of a president that is moving tyrannical like that.
And then the mainstream media wants to attack me in every second. But we're doing everything right. It's taking a lot longer than I wish it could. But I think we're at the point now where Joe Biden's got some serious legal issues himself.
There'd be outrage. But that's what they're doing vocally at the moment. That's what they're doing on social media. Is that really the best? Look, I'm an outsider looking in. Just explain it to me.
Do you think Tish James and Judge Ergeron, do they feel ashamed, a little embarrassed? Have they felt, I don't know, maybe did they overreached a little bit after this decision?
Well, that would mean that they have a moral compass or a conscience, and I don't feel that that exists. People that go on TV, censor Donald Trump, shut him off when he's speaking, want to act like he's about to go broke, want to act like he's poor, and that's why he couldn't get a bond that no private company has ever been asked to get, with no cash equivalents other than cash, marketable securities. People that get excited for that, they don't have a conscience, Jesse. But, you know, I hope she took a little piece of humble pie today, because that's what was served to her. Just a little. But we'll be serving a lot more of that in the next couple of years.
And she'll be eating humble pie. You'll be having birthday cake. We hear it's your birthday, so happy birthday.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you.
All right. Behave yourself.
And first, the Washington Post, or excuse me, Politico, Jonathan Martin is reporting that in this moment, all of the people the Republicans who are not voting for Donald Trump, that are not supporting him, and have made very clear, including on this show, that they will not be voting for him in November, Mitt Romney, Mike Pence, Susan Collins, Larry Hogan, Chris Christie, George W. Bush, none of them have heard from Joe Biden. Why is that? Do you think he should reach out to them?
Well, if he hasn't, I would call that political malpractice. We need the biggest, broadest tent possible. The pro-democracy forces, the anti-authoritarian forces include Republicans, Independent, Green Party, Libertarians, Democrats, and further to the left than Democrats, all have an interest in making sure we don't have an authoritarian in the White House. And so if Biden has not reached out to them, look, it's still early tonight. I hope he'll pick up the phone and do it right now.
Scott, what do you think?
I think everything Joe Biden does is aimed at Democrats or people who consider themselves to be more liberal than Democrats. I think he does very little to nothing to aim at the middle of the country or the center right that you're talking about that could probably be had. He didn't do it in the State of the Union. They don't do it in their campaign messaging. Maybe they'll get there someday, but I don't see evidence of it so far.
So, you know, it's time to do something different. Like, we're not going to have this conversation again. I have come on the air with breaking news about requests for gag orders because of threats for judges and their kids more times than I could count today before I got ready. And Judge Ludig, I think it's time. I don't know who has to write the banners at the bottom of my show. I'm sorry in advance. But Donald Trump broke the rule of law. We should cover a broken judiciary in this country. Donald Trump managed to delay every federal criminal trial based on facts that he barely denies. Donald Trump managed to enlist the Supreme Court in a delay process, the highest court in the land. Donald Trump brazenly and repeatedly attacks not just judges, and I've had the privilege of sitting across not just from you, Judge Ludig, but from Judge Esther Salas, whose son was assassinated by a crazy person. Judges don't have Secret Service protecting them. They don't even always have, I mean, her child answered the door. What are we going to do different? Because Donald Trump sure as hell isn't changing.
Nicole, thank you for having me with you this afternoon. First, we all should congratulate and thank Judge Walton for his interview last night, coming forward with the perilous state of the federal judiciary. It took great courage for him to do that. He is one of the first, to my knowledge, sitting federal judges ever to appear on television to speak about a need of the federal court system. We all have to understand that from the first time that the former president began his attacks, vicious attacks on the federal courts and the state courts and their individual judges, his objective was to delegitimize those courts so that when and if they ruled against him in the various matters that he's been charged with, then at least his followers, if not a good part of the nation, would dismiss those rulings against him as having been politically inspired and motivated. In particular, in most of these instances, politically inspired by President Joe Biden and his administration and Merrick Garland and the Department of Justice. That led into what we have today, which is the fact that the former president is now actually campaigning for the presidency again on the delegitimization of America's institutions of democracy and law. Now, he's the only one at the moment who's claiming that those institutions are no longer legitimate. But many of his followers believe it today, and they will cast their votes in favor of Donald Trump in November on the basis that our institutions of law and democracy are no longer functioning. That's the tragedy. That's the tragedy that the nation faces right now. We've acquiesced in that to date. Acquiesce meaning no one, not one single person in a position of responsibility to address this issue has done so for want of courage and want of will. And until or unless we as a nation address this issue, then we're careening toward the effective end of the rule of law in America.